Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the first Parent Coffee of 2023. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and once again, I'm very excited about our program of speakers. Those of you who were able to join us in September heard from our featured speaker, Dana Eisenman, a clinical therapist who specializes in helping families to develop executive functioning skills. She talked to us about the typical development of these skills in children, gave recommendations on how to help our children at home, and also when to think about seeking outside help. So building on this foundation, today we will hear about how our children learn these skills in Love Hall and what happens when they need more support. Don't worry, if you did not hear the first talk, our wonderful speakers today are experts in their field and will tell you everything that you need to know. In a little bit, you will hear more about Laura Kopp and Whitney Woodward, who are the Directors of Teaching and Learning, and Sasha Mills, one of our two learning strategists. We will also hear from Keith Evans and Lauren Dupriest, who have taken time out of their busy schedules to give us updates about Westminster and Love Hall. And even though it is only February, it's time to start thinking about 2023-24. Today, you will learn more about the options for getting involved with PAWS for next year. But first, it is my great pleasure to introduce our special guest who will start this meeting off with a devotion. Dr. Richard Manley Adams Jr., known as Bo, is the director of Pitt's Theology Library at the Candler School of Theology at Emory University and the Margaret A. Pitts Assistant Professor in the Practice of Theological Bibliography. I could not fit all your titles on this slide. Bo grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and went to Dartmouth College, where he received his BA in Computer Science and Economics. He went on to earn his PhD in the Graduate Division of Religion from Emory University. He also has a master's degree in Library and Information Studies from the University of Alabama. He is trained as a New Testament scholar, a software developer, and a librarian. His research and teaching interests are in understanding reading communities, reading technologies, and reading practices, both ancient and modern. In addition to his full-time job at Pitt's, Bo is currently teaching his second course in the Honor Academy at Peachtree Presbyterian Church on the topic of how to read and interpret the Bible. While in college, Bo met his future wife. He and Windsor are proud Wildcat parents to Mary in 3rd grade, Reed in 6th grade, and Fuller in 9th grade. Oh.
Thank you, Farah. I feel like I'm invading Windsor space here. So, great to be with you. Thank you all for being here in February, which I think is the busiest of times, right? I mean, it's kind of ironic. We're going to do executive function training for our kids, but I think all of us could probably use a little executive function training to get through the busy time. So anyway, I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here. And in the midst of the craziness that is this month, I want to invite us all to just take a deep breath, to pause for a second, and reflect on the moment, or the work that we do in combination with the administrators and teachers here. So to center our time here for a minute, I'd like to bring your mind to what I consider to be the greatest thing that happens here in the Hamilton Room. Now, I'm not talking about the birthday celebrations, as wonderful as those are, or the first 3rd grade orchestra concert. I'm talking about that wonderful moment when our kids get together and sing the words from Micah 6:8b. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to seek mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Amidst everything that happens here in Love Hall, over in Clarkson Hall, and throughout the upper school, across a full curriculum of math and science and orchestra, this is the task that we join the school in doing for our children: to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Now, the Baptist preacher in me sees this tripartite division as an opportunity for a 30-minute sermon, but to calm Farah's nerves, I'll simply focus on that last phrase, to walk humbly with our God. Now, one of the great privileges of my life and my work is I get to spend a lot of time with the writing and speeches of the 20th century preacher, mystic, and intellectual forebearer of the American Civil Rights Movement, Howard Thurman. Now, if you are not familiar with the work of Howard Thurman, I cannot encourage you enough to learn about this man and the great work that he did. He has a way of speaking to us directly that takes trite sayings and traditions and flips them on their head and invites deep reflection. Though Thurman was raised in a context that could not be more different than Westminster, he spoke and thought often about this verse, Micah 6:8b, and the way that this charge frames all of our lives. And so I'd like to read you today Thurman's thoughts on this final phrase, to walk humbly with our God. So here's Thurman's words. How do you walk humbly with God? How do you walk humbly with anybody? By always measuring yourself by the other person? Or by pretending that you are really worse than you are? Thurman says, I remember when I was a boy, a rather elderly lady, in the presence of my grandmother, said something very nice about me, about the little speech I had just made at an event. And when she said this very nice thing to me, I said, oh, Mrs. Murray, don't say anything like that. My grandmother watched this performance, and then when Miss Murray went on her way, my grandmother said to me, I'd like to tell you something. Before life gets through with you, there will be so many people who will say ungracious things about you, that whenever anybody says any kind or thoughtful word about you, be sure to let them do it. Thurman continues, is this what we mean by humility? Always selling oneself at a discount in the open market. Is that humility? Or is humility understanding what my equipment is, coming to grips with who I am, what I am accurately and fully as possible, a clear-eyed appraisal of myself? And in light of the dignity of my own sense of being, I walk with God. Step by step, God walks with me. This is I, with my weaknesses and my strengths, with my abilities and my liabilities. This is I, a human being myself. And it is that God salutes, so that the more I walk with God, and God walks with me, the more I come into the full significance of who I am and what I am. That is to walk humbly with God. So I invite us all today to remember that each of our children has their own particular gifts. For some of us, the idea of training in executive function is almost laughable, because our kids have been picking out their own clothes and keeping their own calendars since they were in preschool. For others of us, the school's offer of executive function training is literally a godsend, as we're not sure our children are ever going to find their own shoes or to remember to bring home the damn reading folder. Wherever you lie on that spectrum, I want to invite you to relax and think about Micah 6:8b in a way that perhaps you've never thought about before. To walk with God in our humility. That is, with all of our faults and our flaws, our God, however we understand that word and that authority, chooses to walk alongside of us, to walk alongside our oftentimes imperfect children. Thurman closes this sermon on Micah 6:8b with this line, and I really, really wish you could hear him say it instead of me. He has such a better voice than I do. Quote, what does God require of thee, O Son of Man? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And that perhaps is the meaning of religion. Certainly, Thurman says, it is the meaning of a good life. In the midst of all the busyness that we find this February, I hope you will find comfort in working alongside a school that orients your child's training and all the things that the school teaches within a core idea that in our humility, with all of our faults as well as our strengths, God chooses to walk alongside of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bo. I think everybody is really energized and inspired for our meeting now. Of all of Bo's distinguished accomplishments and titles, surely the one that he is most proud of is that of First Gentleman-elect of PAWSinLS. I'd now like to turn the floor over to our President-elect, Windsor Adams, who will tell you about the process to self-nominate for Parents' Council for next year. There are so many positions that we need to fill that we really rely on all of you to raise your hands and willingness to serve. We especially love it when new parents, new to Love Hall, and new to Parents' Council express interest in getting involved. So I will let Windsor tell you some more about it.
Sounds like Farrah planned the double act this morning. I did not realize exactly how planned that was. Hi everybody, I'm Windsor Adams. I'm just here to tell you guys about the process to nominate for next year. I know it feels early, but we are already slating, or will be soon slating, for all of our roles for Paws and Lower School for next year. So I'm not going to walk through all of the roles, but I am going to remind you guys of the many ways there are to get involved, and then how to go ahead and put your name in if you would like to do something more next year. So the overview is Paws in the Lower School includes an executive committee of about 10 people, Parents Council, which is the Paws in Lower School committee chairs, that's about 60 people, and then room reps, which is another 26. So if you're doing the math, that's 96 people that we need to run all of our wonderful Paws in Lower School events next year. We have such a great group of volunteers this year who has really done an amazing job, and the idea is that when you guys sign up for next year, this year's group is still here and ready to orient and train you guys and hand over all the documents and planning materials that they used this year. The committees that we talk about as far as being part of the Parents Council include the grade level committees. If many of you guys have volunteered for a grade level opportunity through our amazing Sign Up Genius, some of them are these. So in 3rd grade, we have Lovestock. 4th grade, we have Westward Expansion. 5th grade, we have Greek Parade, as well as the Veterans Assembly. So if you're going to have a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader next year, those are all wonderful events to get more involved with. Every grade has field day, as well as end-of-year parties, and those are additional opportunities. We also have arts and extracurricular committees. So under that banner, we have all of our amazing arts in the lower school, orchestra, band, chorus, and then as well as our teachers. So our teaching, we have teaching liaisons in art and design thinking, and we also have the innovation fair under that umbrella. We have school-wide events that I'm sure many of you guys have attended, and we need people to help run those. So we have the Pigskin Picnic, which is really a school-wide, meaning Westminster-wide event. But we also have Grandparents' Day this spring, which you guys will attend. We have the Halloween Parade. We have harvest decorations and holiday decorations. I know sometimes it feels like those things sort of go up by magic, but we have whole committees of parents who put those up for us and plan them. But by the way, we also have decorations that get passed down from year to year, so you would not be in charge of coming up with the whole scheme. We have admissions volunteers. I see many familiar faces this year who've been in the trenches with us in admissions this year. We have teacher appreciation, spirit night, and then library volunteering. All goes under those school-wide committees. If you're interested in community building, we have community building committees. Those include the birthday celebrations that happen every month, Caring Cats, the Everybody Cooks Community Dinner is a community building event. We have parents who are involved with welcoming new families to our community over the summer. And then we have our parent education and book club groups. We have equity and inclusion committees. So for many of you guys who've been involved with one of our affinity groups, we need leadership in each of those affinity groups. And we also, if you guys haven't seen our bulletin board this morning, this month's Black History Month bulletin board is amazing out there. But somebody does that. That's a parent who's in charge of that bulletin board. And this year it's been amazing. And Everybody Cooks is again also under the Equity and Inclusion Committee. If you're interested in service, we have parents who help us run all of those service events that we have every year. So Angel Tree, Reader to Reader, Shower for Shelters, and Day of Service, all of those are helped by our parent leaders, many of whom are in this room today, if you'd like to ask them more about those opportunities. And then if all of that seems too much, you'd really just rather get involved in your child's classroom and get to know the parents in those classrooms better. We have groups who are involved, well, this one is about room representatives. Room representatives you've all had contact with in your classrooms this year, but we need one in every homeroom. So room representatives are in charge of parent orientation, and they also distribute important messages from PAWS and from teachers and lower school administration. And then they also get parents in each classroom to volunteer to host the other events that you guys have attended, like the celebrations of teacher birthdays that you get emails about, classroom holiday parties, parent socials, and then that grade-wide end-of-year party. So that's room representatives in each of the classrooms. Now, how do we know you want to do any of these things? The self-nomination form has already been posted in the WPU. If you would like the link, I can also send it to you, so please reach out after the meeting if you would like it. But we need you to put your name in the hat. So the form is a pretty long form because it lists all of the different opportunities that we've talked about this morning, including room representatives. If you're not sure what you want to do and you just want to get more involved, fill out the form and put that in the notes and just tell us, hey, I'd like to do something. I'm not really sure what's the right fit for me. I encourage you, no matter what your level of involvement currently is, as Farrah mentioned, we love new parents, and also working parents. Farrah and I both work full-time and do all of these different events, so we try to make it as easy as possible for those of you who have other commitments outside of the lower school as well. We'd love to have you. Again, check the WPU for the link or reach out to me or Farrah. We can send it to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Windsor. All right, I'd now like to welcome President Evans to give us an update about the school.
And thank you both for that. I was aware when Bo was talking, I have got a son who's on the cusp of 33 and another one who is 29. And I was thinking that this age of our lower school kids is sort of the season of hope relative to executive functioning. And then over time, what actually happens is a kind of reconciliation that you do as a parent, that my children are just going to be good at other things. And I'm going to get good at executive functioning. And I'm going to use text messaging and those kinds of things to help my adult children reach their potential. But I think for now, you go for executive functioning, absolutely. And you just hold out the reality that that dog might not hunt. And it'll be okay if it doesn't. Thank you all so much for being here this morning, and thank you for all the work that goes on with PAWS in the lower school. This is really an astonishing 96-person team that supports all the work that goes on down here, and so we're really, really grateful for it, and it's just fun to have a couple of minutes with you this morning. We are working on two projects, one of them that is highly visible to you and will become more visible, and the other one that is a little bit behind the scenes. The very visible one actually needs to be accompanied by some sort of background drum roll music. And the drum roll is that before spring break, you're going to sort of get some information from us and a big kind of a thing about the construction that's about to happen at Love Hall. Now I know you're looking around this room thinking to yourself, how could they possibly need more space? They clearly have all the space they need for their instrumental music program. Sure, the back wall is up so that you can't hear the kitchen during the presentation. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, this cafetorium has been in service for 30, 40, 50 years, more than most of us have been alive. I think our space needs are evident, and this first, I'm gonna call it the first phase of construction that we're about to undertake. You're gonna see a couple signs of it over spring break and then more in earnest as summer begins. It's gonna be really exciting. And so I was going to show you pictures of it, but the staff at OIA waved me off and said, no, that would spoil the big reveal that's coming before spring break. So keep an eye out for that. And when we are back together again, I will kind of walk through some details of it a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about what it's going to mean and how it's going to play out. But I think that the really exciting thing is that some physical changes are coming, A. B, they're not going to be hugely disruptive to our students. We're going to be working through a lot of it over the summer so that during the school year it's not quite so disruptive. And we also now have kind of positioned ourselves with the opportunity with the land bank kind of back behind us on what was once the softball field to really envision not only this phase but multiple phases out in the future for what Love Hall could be. And so this is really exciting and much needed, and has attracted a great deal of support from our broader community. There's another project that is not bricks and mortar related that we're working on, but more related to the people who spend their day with your children and who make things like this Love Hall project come about. You all know, because you've experienced in your own lives, you've read headlines about it, that the world changed a lot, was changing a lot in terms of how people were thinking about their work lives up until the pandemic, and then that became sort of an inflection point. and all of a sudden, a whole set of assumptions that all of us held around what it was going to mean to sort of go to the office and, you know, slug out the day and that kind of thing suddenly came into question. I think, because a lot of people had time to sit in their basements with their dogs and look at the Zoom screen and think to themselves, how much do I miss that coffee pot in the office? You know, what really has become possible for me here. And so as conceptions of work have changed across the broader landscape, as we have seen in our own families, those things change and even have accommodated them with you know, folks who come to pick up their children earlier and actually bring their laptops and work from the car, those kinds of things here on campus. We've also seen that reflected in our own faculty and staff. The same kind of shortages of people that are being experienced in a lot of places we see here. We tend to see it a little bit less on the faculty side, a little more on the staff side, where we have unfilled positions that we can't find people for. It does not make us unique, but puts us right in the mix of a larger narrative. We see generational changes, how baby boomers, as is often characterized, you know, live to work, and how younger generations work to live, and what those differences mean in the context of a school like this. We also see things that are particular to educational settings, as faculty have been not working from home over these last couple of years, have been in classrooms en masse with distancing and all the other things that COVID required, and the kind of stress levels that visited upon our faculty, and some of the kind of hangover from that whole experience that we suspected was existent in our faculty, and we found out that it actually is. And so a couple of, probably about 2 or 3 months ago, we did a large, what we called a State of Work at Westminster survey. It was a fairly substantial survey. It took nearly a half an hour on average to complete for all of our faculty and staff. We engaged 5 other schools like us in the same thing, so we would have some benchmarks. We are still digesting the data from that, but the things that we are very aware of is that the world has changed for us. The world has changed for our employees across both faculty and staff. We are determined to be out ahead of that, because we know that all of the lovely facilities that we can build and all of the different kinds of renovations and refurbishments we might do only pay off if there are really highly talented, highly motivated, excited faculty and staff to occupy them and to engage students when they get here. And so we're working through that process. We've had some initial kind of conversations about it. We're going to use the February 21st date when your children will be with you and our faculty and staff will be on campus to kind of digest a lot of that data with the faculty and staff and reflect back to them what that survey said and how it also compares with those benchmarks. And then we're really going to be thinking and rethinking how we can continue to attract, retain, develop a pool of and a faculty and staff that is as excellent as has been true for the history of the school over time. That's a big project. It's a big project for us, and it's a big project for everyone out there in organizations that are finding their way through this. But we are determined from the board right through the leadership team into the faculty and staff itself that we will sort of take the lead on this in schools and rethink how all of that works. Now, if that sounds like a half-finished thought, it's because it is a half-finished thought. We have now a lot of data. We do not necessarily have a lot of solutions because we've just begun to think through it all and to look at it all. But I think what we understand is that we're in a multi-year project around this. And if you read the headlines about schools and what's happening across the country in schools, you're seeing a lot of those inflection points, not only in areas like teacher retention, but probably more affecting us is not so much retention as much as it is that when someone retires or moves out of town, we're finding talent pools that used to be 5 feet deep that are now 5 inches deep. And that is given us a little bit of a bracing kind of new dose of reality. So I want you all to know that you'll hear more about this as we go along. We're right kind of midstream with it, much as we are this construction. But just know that this is a key focus for us. We know that the people who meet your children each day are the very most important things about the school. And we're really determined that we're going to support them. We're going to make sure that our professional culture is one that makes them want to stay here, allows them to grow, and really allows the school to flourish and your children to thrive in it, and hopefully develop some executive functioning along the way. But if not, we're not going to be disappointed about that. It's going to be okay because they're going to be creative inventors in that regard. One of the people who's working hard on this is Lauren DePriest, our head of the lower school. Lauren, I'm trying to think, is this the first appearance you've had before PAWSin Lower School where you're kind of official?
Where I'm it.
Were you it? Yeah. Should we give Lauren like a huge rousing round of applause here?
Thank you. Yes, it really is nice to drop that interim, although bless the kids, they had no idea what that word even means. And so when we had this sort of celebration a couple of weeks ago with some of the students, they were in it, they were singing, it was amazing. They were a little bit clueless, which just is precious about this age. They want to be part of the party without necessarily understanding all the dots that connect us there. Thank you for being here this morning. It's so good to see you. I wanted to thank Bo, but I know that Windsor will pass along my thanks for his poignant devotion, and then to Keith for joining us this morning and really talking about the commitment to excellence in facilities and faculty as we move forward. I wanted to take just a few minutes to update you about what has been happening in Love Hall. We returned in January, and as Windsor and Farrah both said, it's like we blinked and suddenly we were in February. We haven't missed a beat. Recently, we celebrated Lunar New Year. I want to say a big thank you to our East House parents for decorating Love Hall in honor of the Year of the Rabbit. If you had seen the bulletin board with the hand-cut rabbits with the decor and they can't use those decorations for another 12 years. I just want you to think about that for a minute. The dedication for transforming our space. Each hallway was vibrant with red decor, and thank you to those parents who visited classrooms to teach about the traditions of Lunar New Year. Of course, our parade featuring our first grade students was quite a success. I'm confident that the noise we created scared away all of the evil spirits for another year. And I understand the festivities continued the following day as our East House parents organized a Korean barbecue lunch for over 140 people to come together. Then, truly, over the course of a weekend, the bulletin board that Farrah and Windsor referenced earlier outside of the front office was transformed into an interactive space where students, faculty, and parents alike can learn about inspiring and influential Black Americans to kick off our Black History Month. Thank you to the Village parents for organizing classroom read-alouds for our pre-first students and presentations for 1st through 5th grade homerooms in Love Hall, again led by Black parents or Westminster alumni. And yesterday we had our Black History Month assembly. We welcomed Spelman students from the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. They performed some traditional step routines and answered student questions. The Hamilton room was alive with energy and enthusiasm. I want to also be sure that we are highlighting a few events to come because, again, we're in February and we're going to blink and the school year is going to be over. There is a lot to look forward to. Of course, at the end of this month, we have our parent-teacher conferences. Our teachers are excited to see you and talk about your students' growth. In 5th grade, the students will be there for half of the conference so they can talk about their own growth, start to really be advocates for their learning, and then set some goals for the 3rd trimester. Then, of course, we have Grandparents and Special Friends Day on Friday, March 24th, followed by our school-wide day of service on the morning of the 25th. Additional information for that, I see Mary Riddick here, and additional information for that will be shared through the WPU. Then we'll have Christian Emphasis Week, that first week in April, and students have never been more excited about our theme, Make a Joyful Noise. They are ready for it. So we'll have lots of great activities and time as a community to celebrate that. And then lastly, the Innovation Fair on Saturday, April 22nd. This is an event not to be missed. There will be opportunities to volunteer, and we can connect you with Ani Satz, who is here, who is helping to be a bridge, that liaison between parents and faculty. And that will also be the first time that our newest Wildcats will be invited to campus to participate in a school event. And it really is an incredible day. You don't want to miss it. And now it's time for our featured presentation. I'm so excited for you to hear from Whitney Woodward, Laura Kopp, and Sasha Mills. Many of you already know how wonderful they are, but in case you haven't had a chance to meet them yet, I will share a little bit about their backgrounds and highlights of their numerous accomplishments. Whitney Woodward and Laura Kopp are our directors of teaching and learning in the lower school. Originally from Atlanta, Whitney attended Westminster from pre-first through graduation. She received her undergraduate degree in art history from Washington University in St. Louis, and her master's in education with a concentration in early childhood education from the University of Georgia. She received her leadership endorsement from Georgia State University. Whitney was a teacher and administrator with Atlanta Public Schools before moving to Haygood Weekday Children's Ministries, where she served as the executive director over their daycare, preschool, and after-school programs. We stole her away in 2020 when she joined us as a fourth grade teacher before becoming the director of teaching and learning for pre-first through second grades. She is a certified L5 Georgia educator in addition to being ESOL certified and Orton Gillingham trained. She currently serves on the executive board of the American branch of International Play Association. Outside of work, Whitney is married to her high school sweetheart Ted, master of dad jokes, and has 3 children, all of whom are current Westminster students in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. Laura graduated from the University of Georgia with a Bachelor in Education degree, middle grades 4 through 8. She completed her Master's in Educational Leadership with a concentration in technology from Kennesaw State University. She taught 6th grade for 4 years at Dickerson Middle School in East Cobb. Laura joined the Westminster faculty in 1993 as a Seventh. Okay, that's better. 1997 as a 5th grade language arts and reading teacher. In 2008, she became the director of professional learning communities in the lower school. In 2014, Laura joined the lower school administration team as the director of teaching and learning for 3rd through 5th grades. Laura married Peter Kopp in 2013, blending their families and lives in the city of Decatur. Her son, Stuart, is a sophomore at the University of Georgia. Her stepson, James, is a sophomore at Georgia State University, and her stepdaughter, May, is a junior at Decatur High School. Though they love their children dearly, Peter and Laura are looking forward to becoming full empty nesters in just a couple of years. Laura and Whitney work closely with our learning strategists in Love Hall, Sophie Daniels and Sasha Mills. Sophie was sending us emails early this morning as she's on her way to Colorado for the National School Psychologist Conference, but their team is well represented by Sasha Mills. Sasha was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and moved to Miami, Florida when she was 7 years old. She completed her undergraduate degree in business and administration at Florida International University and earned her master's in education in elementary school at the University of Florida. In Florida, she was the lead 5th grade math and science teacher at Littlewood Elementary School. When she moved to California, she taught at Serendipity Elementary School, where she was the lead 4th grade teacher and then the lead math and science teacher for 4th and 5th grades. She then became the director of staff and curriculum, In this role, she supervised and led all faculty and staff in the elementary school, from professional development to the implementation of the school-wide curriculum. She recently moved to Atlanta, and we are thrilled that she joined the Love Hall team this year. She and her husband Marcus are parents to Luca and Olivette, as well as their Maltipoo, Professor Plum. And now Sasha, Laura, and Whitney will tell you more about executive functioning in the lower school.
Thank you all for being here. It's so nice to see so many friendly faces and for sharing your morning. So executive functioning in the lower school is something that we can speak passionately about, but full disclosure, I don't think it's anything that any one of us has fully mastered. So in a sense, executive functioning at the lower school is a part of one of our many design thinking projects. We're learning best practices every day, and as Sarah Schaefer, our math guru, tells us, when we know better, we do better. So with executive functioning, this is what we know and what we do, but we're always growing with it. Also, in full transparency, as Lauren was so kind to introduce, I know I can speak for myself as a mom, and I can speak for my friends as mothers too. We are living this also, and we know from our own experience what works for one child might not work for another child, even from the same family and same environment. So we're going to share what we have here and what's in place. But no, just at least in my household, I have one child who loves to go to Target and pick out her calendar for the year and color code it. And she taught me how to color code my tabs on my computer. It's her jam. And then I have another child who walks mindlessly as papers trail behind him. And again, same environment growing up, but they just absorb these things differently. So in the lower school, I will start talking about our, this is who we also are. This is how you'll see us in the yearbook. When we talk about executive functioning, this is a graphic that Sophie Daniel shared with us, kind of looking at 11 different pieces that represent executive functioning. You can see these are diverse, they're all important, they're all represent different ways that we think about our time and our space. And a big piece there at the bottom, you'll see metacognition. This is something that we start in Love Hall, but it's something that's woven through again and again as a thread, not just through high school, but really through their entire lives. And that's something that we start here. But I'll start in pre first. When children come, and we'll make sure to share this image with you. I see a lot of phones up. Don't worry, we're happy to share this. When we talk about pre-first, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that we work on. It's not everything in one day. It's something that gets started from the moment they walk in, and every day we add a little bit more. But they're kind of based on these questions, and they come from preschool to big kids school. When you have a 4 and 5-year-old walking in, the big question is, what do I do when I don't know what to do? I mean, it's kind of a metaphoric question. I guess we could all ask that of ourselves. What do I do when I don't know what to do? And then how do I know what to do next? So when you have someone coming in, a 5-year-old, they walk in, they've not set foot in this building as a student before. They might have come as a little sibling, they've come for their on-campus evaluation. But when they walk in that door, they don't know what to do. They're not supposed to know what to do. So we set in place in pre-first practices, visual representations to show them here's what comes next. That's a big part of pre-first, and coming from a preschool to a kids school is learning what transitions are and how to adapt to them. So you can see some of the pieces that we have here. We let them know expectations. We let them know what transitions look like. We do that in a lot of visual sequencing. We have it on the board. We show them what specials come next. A lot of our children might not really be interested in telling time yet, but they want to know what comes next. So we show them with images. We're going to go to design thinking later. We're going to have recess after that. We're going to have lunch. So that way they can mentally prepare themselves. It's that feeling of being prepared that puts a lot of us at ease. When people are surprised when they say, okay, we're doing this right now. If I were going to tell all of us right now, we're going into the hallway right now, it'd be a little jangling for all of us. Of course it would be, because we like to know what comes next. Children are no different. So in preschool, we want to set up those expectations so they're ready and thoughtful with these transitions. We want to have our visual routine. We want to give them time to process a transition that is coming. Okay, guys, in 5 minutes, or when this visual reminder, sometimes even the, what's the word, the days of their lives, the hourglass, thank you. We all got it. Sometimes it's a visual reminder, so that way they can see for themselves, okay, I have this much time, and then I know what comes next. So that way they can really feel prepared. When they are 4 and 5 years old and coming, we want to make sure that they start to build that confidence, and with that confidence comes competence. And that's such a great feeling for them to have so they can best prepare themselves. We want to give them also this piece at the bottom, think time. That's such an important part for them. So that way they can start to make decisions for themselves. Okay, there's a mess that I made. I don't know what to do next. They can figure it out. They're very capable, but we have to give them the time and the ability to do so. We know that you do that at home when you're able to. Sometimes it's like, come on, get those shoes on, we gotta go. But if we're able to say, okay, you don't have your shoes on, but we need to go, what do you do next? We try to mirror that here too when we're able. Again, that think time allows them to process, think through possibilities, allow them to move into that flexible thinking. Well, I don't have time to do this, so what can I do instead? We want to show them all these pieces. This is nothing earth-shattering. You know that this is what happens, but we want to make it visual and apparent and do it thoughtfully here, so that way they're able to make decisions. This also helps with letting them have some self-regulation. Sometimes big kid school is a time when I've got a great idea and this is what I want to do, but I'm working in a group with someone who does not have the same idea. What do I do? What do I do? We spend a lot of time talking about SEL skills. They work with Miss May. We talk about self-regulation. If I'm frustrated, what do? I take a deep breath. We want to make sure that they have time to build their empathy also. We do this in morning meetings. We do this when we talk with our friends, when we don't get our way. We do this when we get home and have a sibling and we get frustrated because I don't always get my way. This is a big part of becoming a competent human being, finding ways that flexible thinking, when it's not exactly the way I want to do it, but it's kind of close, how am I able to adapt with that? This is all part of executive functioning. For those of you who heard Dana speak, she talked a lot about that flexibility piece, and we try to have that here too. One other piece that we do is we really try to let them start in an appropriate way to build their own organization skills. They've got their little backpacks, you all know them well. Sometimes they're dirty, sometimes they're clean, we don't care. They bring them every day because that's the one thing I have to remember when I'm in pre-first. And then when I get to first grade, I've got my own backpack. I've got to make sure I've got my book in the bag sometime, did I remember it? And within that book in the bag, I'm able to self-select from these choices. Lots of different skills are being just in that one small moment. And we want to celebrate when they remember. We don't want to be discouraging when they don't. We want to help them remember so that way it becomes a practice for them so they're able to do that by themselves. We give them reminders. We want them to start being aware as they get into first and second grade of time a little bit more. Instead of having it labeled out, we'll put the time with it so that way they can start referencing the clock and start to put those two pieces together. And then of course, one thing that, as Lauren referenced, that we're passionate about here is play. Letting them have play as that time to make choices, to make decisions, and to build that flexibility. We do a lot of purposeful play, especially in math in pre-first, because play is developmentally appropriate for them, and they learn so many different lessons. On the playground, when it's free choice play, these same decisions are being put in place where they have to make decisions. Oh, you don't want to play with me? Well, what do I do then? What can I do next? These allow that autonomy. They allow for that flexibility, pivoting sometimes, and also it's fun. And of course, when we do make sure that we go back to that responsibility piece, being responsible for yourself and for your actions, but also being responsible for your items and what you're able to take care of. So it's a lot of different pieces. Executive functioning is so broad in so many ways. So through so many thoughtful pieces, we want to make sure that the children are able to take those steps so they can start to organize their thoughts, organize themselves, and again, build that confidence and competence. So as they get to the upper grades where there are quite a few more structured pieces in place, we're able to help them out. But of course, we know that they're young when they come to us and we meet them where they are to help build those skills. And we're so grateful for our partnership with all of you wonderful parents, because that's really where these pieces blend together and to really make sense for the children. All right, thank you, Laura.
Thank you. So as Whitney said, we then come to the upper grades and in third grade. And we really are looking at in third grade ways that they can talk about themselves as learners. We want them to know who they are so that they can advocate for themselves. We talk about organization, time management, that's very important as they get older.
Third grade, they get a binder which goes from 3rd to 5th grade. This is based upon something that is down in the middle school, so we really are looking at that transition. And so when they get to 3rd grade, we have them look at the entire week. We don't say, hey, what's just going on this, this day. We have them look at the whole week so that if they have baseball, football, church, and gymnastics after school, and they have to read 100 minutes during that week, they can look at that week and they can say, okay, these are the days that I'm busy after school. This is when I can do this. And we really want them to start taking responsibility for themselves. They do have homework in 3rd grade. It's okay. And it's low stakes. That's what's so wonderful about lower schools, that by the time they get up into 5th grade, if they forget their PE clothes, if they forget their homework, we're asking you to try not to bail them out so that they can learn that, you know what, a pink slip is not a big deal. It's just helping me to remember that I need to get my scheduling together. And by the time they get to 5th grade, we have some things in place that are really fun. Tom, Maureen, and I this year did a goal group on executive functions, and we had them bring their backpack. And somebody had a rotten banana in their backpack, along with lots of papers stashed in the backpack. So we were like, okay, when you have a locker next year, let's think about how you're going to organize this, because your backpack is your locker right now. And so we're helping them put tabs in their binders and clean out their backpacks. And this is where the partnership at home comes into play, where you might say to your child, let's pull out your backpack and do a backpack clean out. Let's have your agenda. Let me see what you're doing. Camille May and Sophie Daniels last week visited one pod, and they're going to visit the other pod at the end of February, where they had an entire class that day on executive functioning. And so our 10-year-olds know what the word executive functioning means. I know that when I was in 5th grade, what was that? I don't even know if it was alive at that point, but they know what it means. And it was so amazing to be in that classroom listening to these students, because Sophie and Camille were talking about the fight or flight, so that when you get anxious and nervous about something, you have a fight or you have a flight. And what you do about that, how you regulate that. And the kids started saying, they were listening to their peers. The kids started saying, when I get really, really anxious, I do my belly breaths or my breathing, and they demonstrated what they did. I had some other kids say that this is how I study at home. Apparently whiteboards at home is a big deal. They love their whiteboard, so go out and get a whiteboard. And they are writing all their schedules for the week on their whiteboards. We had kids just really talking back and forth with each other, and they are hearing their peers say, this is how I manage, this is how I study. In 5th grade, we also have a shadow day where they go down to the middle school, and they shadow the middle school. They're with the 6th graders that whole entire day. They come back up to the lower school, and they're like, peace out, we're ready to go. They are saying how babyish it is up here and how free it is down there. But they can see that they are going to have a locker. They're going to have 7 different classes. They're going to be going to Turner Gym and coming back up. And they have to be, we are giving them those tools up here on how to manage their time. Finally, another thing that we do in the 5th grade is that we partner with the 8th grade class. Patrick Egan is a teacher down there, and he brings 8th graders up. And the 8th graders come into morning meeting and talk to our 5th graders, because they're kind of the seniors of middle school, and they talk to our 5th graders about what they wish they knew when they were going into 6th grade, and they can ask them any question. So we're getting our kids prepared to where what you want is you want your child to be able to say, this is how I learn best, this is what I need. I might have a learning difference, and that's okay. It is no big deal that I have a learning difference, but here are the tools that I need to be able to be successful. I've had the administration say down there that the thing that they see the difference between the new kids coming in and our 5th graders coming in is that our 5th graders know how to talk about their learning and what they need. And that is what we want as parents. So so that maybe one of these days, when you're a freshman in college, this might be a true story, calls you up and says, I decided to go out instead of study. You say, figure it out, buddy. I'm not there. And they do. And they're successful and they're happy. And that's what you want. You want your child to be successful and happy and have those tools. And we, as the teachers in the school, are giving them those tools. And that's what you want them to have as they go on to middle and upper.
So I'm going to talk about additional support. We already do so much, but there's even more that we do. A lot of the time there's specific lessons being taught in the classroom with executive functioning in mind, whatever the facet might be. It might be organization. There's small group instruction like Laura was talking about. I also did a goal group with 4th grade in the beginning of the year. And with my group, they got an opportunity to evaluate themselves. What were their strengths and what were the areas of opportunity? And that kind of sparked some interest in them to take ownership about their own abilities. So we looked at their areas, their opportunities of growth, and we talked about different strategies, and they were just building more strategies for their tool belt, right? Because we're really thinking about it for middle school and high school. What does it translate into? There's a lot of student-teacher conversations, and it's really collaborative in Love Hall. And that, I think, is so valuable because teachers know the students specifically, and they can have conversations and create plans. Sophie and I get more involved with these plans and students that are on student support. So a large portion of our student population have learning differences, and they have a learning plan. And research shows, students that have learning differences, executive functioning tends to be an area that they need more support in. Just last week, I was in a parent conference, and I think this will be one that I always remember because it was really beautiful. The teachers had a checklist that they created for the student. And in that meeting, the majority of our meeting was around this checklist to help this child feel really good about herself, because they can see that she was internally struggling with how she felt she was performing. So they created this checklist, the parents were on board, because that is a huge piece of everything that we do, is the support that we have, it's the teamwork together. Because we can tell them all these things at school, but when they're able to also do it at home, that's so powerful. So we sat together, they looked at the checklist, the student actually came in, she looked at the checklist, she took ownership of it, and now we're all working together, and we're giving her this life skill that she'll continue to take on as she goes through Love Hall, and most importantly, just in life. These are the skills that we really need our students to feel good about, because that's gonna take them out when they want, whatever they wanna be as adults. So we get involved in that part of what are we gonna implement? Do they need additional support? What does that look like? What specific area of executive functioning? And we work together with the teachers and the parents. We have a lot of discussions around executive functioning. The learning strategists, we meet weekly, cross-divisionally, and we spend a lot of time talking about executive functioning and just what are the trends that we're each seeing in our divisions, and what else can we do? So when they go into middle school, even when they go into high school, and just kind of tearing it out, just last week we were talking about all of this. So it's really relevant to all the work that we're doing behind the scenes to continue to support them in the classrooms. At the end of the month, when we have that professional development day, at the end of the day, a session for the Love Hall, we're gonna have a panel of experts, and one of them is going to be an executive function coach, Rachel Barron, and she's very known in our community, and she's gonna be able to provide additional recommendations and strategies for the teachers. They're gonna have an opportunity to ask questions. Again, everything to have best practices so we can bring it back into the classroom and be really mindful and meaningful with what we're doing to make sure it's the most effective. I know Dana already talked about what's developmentally appropriate, but I just wanted to share it with you all again. And I know sometimes it's hard when your kids are not listening and we feel a lot of frustration. But I urge you to ask yourself, well, is this developmentally appropriate? A lot of our students in Love Hall
have really high intellectual abilities. But guess what? Sometimes that deficit in the executive functioning, or what we think is a deficit, just stands out a lot more. So just remember to be mindful when you're thinking about your own child, and if you need additional support, that's okay too. But just remember what's developmentally appropriate. So I just wanted to share that with you all. And here are some resources that you guys can take a picture of this slide, and we'll also share it. And I have a picture of a plant that's growing, and last week Sophie and I met with Rachel Barron, and we were talking about executive functioning. And she explained it beautifully. She said, executive functioning, you gotta think about it like a flower. It's a process. It takes time. You're not gonna teach it one time and the child is gonna get it. It's over and over. And there's gonna be some times that the flower is kind of, wilting over and it's not doing so well. But that's when we come in and that's when we give the additional support. And Sophie and I were like, that was just beautifully said. And that's just a reminder to us that it's a process. And listening to Bo's devotion, I am thee. Our kids are who they are. All we can do is just guide them in the best direction. So just always reach out to us if you have any questions, if you need additional support, we're here to help you all. If you guys have any questions, we'll be happy to answer some. Yes.
I'd like to ask one about the individual learning plans. Talk a little bit about that process, how that's teed up, how getting those that's appropriate for their child, perhaps more than what that child needs. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah. So when we were looking at students, we were having a lot of internal conversations. We're having meetings with parents, and it depends on a child. So if we're thinking possibly we want to try some interventions for a student, or if we feel that there's something else that we need additional support, we would have a conversation with those families, and that's when we create a learning plan. A learning plan is created for students who have a learning difference. So they've been diagnosed a learning difference, and from there we create a plan of strategies and recommendations as they go along through their journey in Love Hall. We're guiding them to make sure that in the following year the teachers really know who the student is as a learner, and that we're following everything that they need.
Sasha, who initiates a learning plan usually?
So the learning plan comes after a student has a full psychological evaluation. So once that is brought to us, then we meet with the Learning Strategist Committee, and in the committee we look and see what accommodations a student might need. We talk with teachers, and in that process, it's just coming up with that plan for that student. Yes?
So recently, Pre-First had the 100 days of school, and so one of my twins did, I've heard this 100 times, this is what it would be, and it was this cute book, and every child did one. And I asked the other one what her answer would be, and she said, hurry up, that's what she hears 100 times, which just kind of broke my heart a little bit. That who she is just savoring and slow. Can one of you speak practically in the morning of how we could have better executive functioning skills as parents and children?
I can, because I'm living this in my house right now. No, I'm on the flip where many of you know my children. One of them, Wes, is ready to come out the door, but my 5th grader gets caught in a book in the morning. He wants to do, and he became aware of it. He didn't like feeling rushed. He got into the car one day, we were here, he forgot shoes. I was like, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. Because they feel that being rushed in the same way we do. But one thing that he asked to do, that is something that we do in classrooms also, is the night before is where you really start getting ready for the morning, right? And sometimes the night before, these conversations, what do I need to be successful in the morning? Because full disclosure, I might have yelled. Things we're not proud of. And I apologized later. I said, I'm so sorry, I lost my temper because I was frustrated because I was late too. And so we said, okay, let's have a conversation together. What can we do so we don't put ourselves in the same situation? So, it does take that planning. You might have one of those moments in parenting. Hopefully I'm not the only one who has had that, that moment of frustration, because they feel frustrated too. So one thing that Knox asked for a whiteboard. Whiteboard didn't go well for him. So, it's a little bit trial and error. What works for you? In the same way, all of us have different ways that we plan our days. Some people use Google Calendars. Some people use paper and pencil. So, still figuring out, but like a to-do list. He helped me design it on Canva, to make it look the way he wanted to, so it had what he needed. So that way the night before, do I have my shoes out? Do I have clean socks out so I'm not going through the pile and more, do I have my list? What do I need in the morning? And then for him, at least when he got older, there were times next to it. But for pre-firsters, we're in charge of when they wake up more, I'm assuming not every pre-firster wakes up to an alarm clock. So what do we do next? And then when you get your breakfast in the morning, this is my visual stimulation, knowing, okay, if it's breakfast, that means I should already have my shoes on, I should already have my bag packed, and I should be ready because this needs to happen by this. But just setting those pieces out, because there is a lot happening for them in the morning. They don't like feeling frustrated, and they can't articulate it the same way we can. Sometimes it comes out in tears. Sometimes it comes out in being tired. Sometimes it comes out in throwing things because they aren't able to really master that self-regulation piece yet. They're not supposed to. They're 5 and 6. But anyway, we can kind of front load that planning for them is just helpful. Also just having a peaceful morning. I know for us, one of our big takeaways was pack the snack the night before. Because when we have to pack the morning of, everybody gets upset and frustrated. So one takeaway for us was we pack it and put it in the fridge the night before. But whatever works best for for your girls.
Thank you.
Something very funny though, you do want that gradual release. I have a very funny story where when my child was in 8th grade, he was talking to his buddies and he's like, yeah, my mom lays out my clothes the night before. And one of his friends goes, dude, I wouldn't admit that in front of you. So I was like, maybe I should not be putting his clothes out. And he's like, Mom, you're never putting my clothes out again. And so it's the gradual release part of it.
I was just going to request, could we get a list of age development executive function for the one next age up, like 11 to 13
Yeah.
age?
We'll get that to you. Other questions? Thank you guys.
Well, thank you all so much again for coming. Please have some coffee and cookies. We have room left for a little bit longer before it's turned over for orchestra. Please save the date for April 20th when we'll hear from the athletics team about charting the course in athletics, which may seem like it's early, but apparently it's not. It's actually the right time to start thinking long term. So, thank you all so much again. Thank you.